This video game scared the crap out of me from the very first moment. I'm talking about Resident Evil 7, the Capcom game that returned to its survival horror roots with this installment. And after cleaning my mechanized rear end, I embark on this terrifying adventure where a beautiful and friendly family gave me a warm welcome.
Welcome to the family, son.
My story with Resident Evil 7 it's a bit unusual, since it was in 2026 that I played it for the first time. It wasn't that I had ignored the game before, no, but rather that I wasn't convinced by the decision to completely abandon the events in Raccoon City to tell a new story with new characters. And I must admit, I was wrong to question the developers at Capcom. They were really on the spot. Resident Evil 7, it's a marvel in terms of gameplay, visuals, and technique. However, the protagonist doesn't quite convince me. I'm talking about Ethan Winters, the character you control in the game. He is very generic, but a good vehicle for the player to experience the fear and adventure that this title offers. Sadly, Ethan doesn't possess the charisma of past protagonists in the Capcom series, such as Leon S. Kennedy, Claire Redfield, or Jill Valentine. Resident Evil 7 made a significant impact on popular opinion due to its decision to implement a first-person perspective throughout the entire game. According to Capcom's developers, this perspective in a horror game offers greater immersion and tension to the player. And remembering my fear, they were right. But it's not the first Resident Evil game to feature a first-person view. Before Resident Evil 7, games like Resident Evil Survivor 1 and 2, Resident Evil The Dark Side Chronicles, and Resident Evil The Umbrella Chronicles use this gameplay and visual mechanic. I don't have a very positive taste for playing Resident Evil games in first person. You know, I grew up playing the classics, where the camera was fixed and the view was in third person. Also, I played the 4. Then, in Resident Evil 4, the camera was fixed behind the character at shoulder level to give it a third-person shooter feel. That's why I think the nostalgia for playing Resident Evil in third person has a hold on my subconscious. But Resident Evil 7, with its narrative and focus on horror as well as survival, masterfully embraces this first-person perspective. Personally, I really like it. Everything in this first person feels more visceral and right in front of you. The scares are more frightening, the fears are more impactful, the anxiety is more overwhelming. Everything is right before your eyes. Also, because combat is minimal in this game for most of the adventure, seeing everything in first person has a greater immersive effect. That's why the developers at Capcom were right. Resident Evil 7 departs from what Resident Evil 6 was, which was an action-packed spectacle from every angle. Capcom returned to the series' roots, where the pace is slow, the atmosphere is paramount, and player observation along with the exploration take center stage. The sections where weapons are used are few, but the firing mechanism is precise. I felt very comfortable firing, whether it was the shotgun, the pistol, the flamethrower, or the machine gun. My favorite weapon was the shotgun, although, being a survival horror game, ammunition for this weapon was scarce. As always in any Resident Evil game, man, you know what I mean. I also like the difficulty of the puzzles. Being a very impatient robot, I don't like it when puzzles in games are super complicated. That's why I enjoy these puzzles in Resident Evil 7. They are insightful, and when I completed them, I felt really smart. I take it. Speaking of the story, I won't reveal much about it, to avoid spoilers, you know. The direction Capcom decided to take with this game is interesting but not so impactful as the Raccoon City events. I understand that the narrative and the events of Raccoon City with its zombies had been milked to eternity. The cow was running dry. And they had to try or create new story branches for the saga. But as for the why or how of what's happening in this house in the middle of nowhere, having any connection to the older games, it's very ambiguous, and even the ending doesn't clarify it. Personally, I did miss the absence of the famous and typical zombie enemies. In this Resident Evil, aside from the Baker family, who deserve their own chapter and whom we'll discuss later in this video, the enemies are like strands of spaghetti stuck together and always remind me of Venom, the villain from the Spider-Man comics. In my opinion, these enemies are forgettable. They fulfill their purpose, of course, of scaring you, but I prefer the classic zombies as a common enemy in these games. But the real stars are the members of this lovely family, the Bakers. Jack Baker, the father, Margaret Baker, the mother, Lucas Baker, the son, and Zoe Baker, the daughter. Special mention goes to Grandma Baker, and I won't say more about her. Hello, Granny. This family is, for me, what makes this game different from the others in the Resident Evil saga. From the beginning, you know there's something strange, beyond the psychotic, about this Baker lineage. They don't look like people, like humans. They don't act like members of this earthly realm. If you catch my drift, Of the three Baker family villains, the one who scared me the most was Mrs. Margaret Baker. She was really creepy. Jack, Mr. Baker, also gave me anxiety because he seemed to follow you everywhere in that hellish house. Also, he is better than Terminator. He never dies, man.
I'll be back.
However, Lucas Jr. came across a cheap imitation of the Joker, Batman's villain. This Lucas and his levels were a bit disappointing after dealing with Jack and Margaret stories, may I say. What I liked the most, what I loved, and what caught my attention about Resident Evil 7 was its location and atmosphere. I'm talking about the rural area of the most enigmatic state in the United States of America. I'm talking about Louisiana. And I am not the only one saying this about Louisiana. Louisiana, its rural areas, and the famous bayou are trademarks of films, books, and fables about serial killers, monsters, aliens, paranormal elements. In short, this piece of land is known worldwide for its infamously terrifying atmosphere, but very attractive. I love Louisiana as the backdrop for any story, whether it's about criminal investigations, paranormal matters, conspiracies, or infernal monsters. The swamps of these lands have so much to tell, and in certain cases, they carry the entire narrative of any story on their shoulders, making it mythical. The atmosphere and location of Resident Evil 7 remind me a lot of my favorite audiovisual work, I'm talking about the TV series True Detective Season 1. If you haven't seen it, you are missing out on top tier television. Take my word, man, time is a flat circle and you can't escape it. As for the sound design, it's a delight to hear every noise coming from the baker's house. Those sounds keep you on your toes, always alert, ready to react. There's not a single moment of calm, ladies and doggies. The creaking on the wooden ceiling, the dripping of water from the bathroom faucet, the thud of a tree branch against the window. You go crazy, man, trying to figure it out what caused that noise. Special mention goes to the game's theme song, Go Tell Aunt Rhody. In my opinion, it's the best song in the Resident Evil saga. Totally 100%. My overall impression of the game is very, very positive. The length of Resident Evil 7 is perfect. I completed the main story in 11 hours of gameplay, and Capcom has released a couple of very interesting DLCs that are worth playing to better understand what's happening in Dolby, Louisiana. It's a game that ventures into Silent Hill territory, focusing more on horror and survival than action. Therefore, if anyone is expecting a Resident Evil like Resident Evil 4, I think they'll be disappointed. But especially if you are a fan of slow-paced games where the atmosphere envelops you, this Resident Evil will delight you as it did with me. I recommend Resident Evil 7, but be wary, wear a diaper when you play it. Okie dokie, thank you for your time and support. I wish you the best in life, healthy life, and see you next time. Bye bye.